So chapter 4, Learning Tapasya, Self-Control. Page number 52 of the beautiful book, The Matchless Gift by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. If one does not come to Krishna consciousness, he may be relieved for the time being from the reactions of sinful activities, but he will again commit transgressions. Therefore, Parikshit Maharaj said, Kvachin nivartate badrat kvachit charati tat punah prayaschitam ato partham. Srimad Bhagavatam 6.1.10. Repetitive sinning and atoning seem to be like nothing but a waste of time. He gave the example of an elephant which cleanses his body thoroughly in a lake or reservoir, but as soon as he comes onto shore, he takes dust and throws it all over his body and immediately becomes dirty again. Thus, Parikshit Maharaj said that although one may cleanse himself in the process of atonement, but he again commits the same sinful acts. What is the use? Therefore, the second question put by Parikshit Maharaj to Shukadeva Goswami is very important. How can one ultimately become free from all contamination brought about by the material modes of nature? If one cannot achieve liberation, what is the use of atonement? In answer, Shukadeva Goswami said that merely counteracting karma, fruitive activities, by other activities cannot bring one's miseries to a final end. For example, the United Nations is attempting to establish peace in the world, but they cannot stop war. War breaks out again and again. After the First World War, statesmen and diplomats manufactured the League of Nations. Then the Second World War came, and now they have devised the United Nations. But war is still going on. The actual goal is to stop war, but that cannot be done. By one action, war is created, and by another action, war is stopped for the time being. But again, in the next opportunity, there is another war. The cycle of sinful activities and atonement is like that. What we actually want is to be free from suffering and war, but that doesn't happen. Shukadeva Goswami said that one kind of war causes a disturbance, and another kind of war stops it for some time. But that is not the ultimate solution to the problem. Shukadeva states that these troubles happen due to ignorance. Avidvad adhikaritvat. Adidvad means lack of knowledge. Avidvat adhikaritvat prayaschitam vimarshanam. Real atonement is performed in knowledge. Why is there fighting and why is there miseries? Unless these why questions, which in the Vedas are called Kena Upanishad, arise in one's mind, one is not fulfilling the proper function of his human life. These questions must arise. Why am I suffering? Wherefrom have I come? What is my constitutional position? Where shall I go after death? Why am I put into this miserable form of life? Why are there birth, death, old age, and disease? How can these questions be solved? Shukadeva Goswami says, Nashnatah patyam evanam vyadhayo bhi bhavanti evam niyamakridrajan shanai kshemaya kalpate. Srimad Bhagavatam 6.1.12. If one wants to actually stop diseased life, he must follow a regulative principle. If a person doesn't follow the program given by a physician to cure his disease, he cannot be cured. Similarly, if one doesn't think or act wisely as Vedic knowledge prescribes, how can he stop the problems of life? Simply by atonement, there may be a temporary suppression of difficulties, but they will arise again. Shukadeva Goswami says that in material or sinful life, we act in a way in which we are forced to commit sins and suffer as a result. This is so, and if we want to stop the cycle of suffering and victimization, we have to advance in knowledge. Ordinary people, or karmis, are fruitive actors who work all day and night to get some enjoyable results and then again suffer. Thus, the problems of such karmis are never solved. It is suggested, therefore, that one elevate himself to the platform of knowledge, as prescribed in Srimad Bhagavatam. The first necessity is tapasya, or acceptance of austerity. If a doctor advises a diabetic patient not to eat, but to starve for some days, although no one likes to starve, the patient must voluntarily accept starvation if he wants to be cured. This is tapasya, voluntary acceptance of a miserable condition. The ability to do so is good, and human life is meant for that purpose. Indeed, Vedic culture prescribes tapasya, and one can see many tapasvis undergoing austerities in India. In the winter, they stand in water up to their necks and meditate. Standing in water during severe cold is not very comfortable, but they voluntarily do so. In the summer, they also ignite fires all around themselves and sit down in the midst of the blazes and meditate. These are examples of severe tapasya undertaken by many ascetics in India. Some tapasya is certainly required. Without it, one cannot advance in spiritual life or knowledge. If we simply engage in the animal propensities of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, not accepting the tapasya process, human life is a failure. If one wants to become an initiated member of our Krishna Consciousness Society, we first of all ask him to undergo tapasya. In the Western countries, especially, it is a great tapasya to give up illicit sex life, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling. Although we require only these austerities, it is very difficult to observe them. In England, a wealthy aristocrat inquired from a Vaishnava godbrother, "Swamiji, can you make me a brahmana?" The Swamiji replied, "Yes, why not? You just have to observe these 4 principles: no illicit sex, intoxication, gambling, and meat eating." "Impossible," the Britisher replied. Yes, it is impossible, for in Europe or in America, self-indulgence is the way of life from the very beginning. Indian gentlemen often come to the West to learn these indulgences, and they think themselves to be thus advancing. Indians are automatically taught tapasya through their Vedic culture, but they come to America to forget that culture and accept some other type of culture, accept another type of life. The real fact is, however, that if one wants to advance in spiritual understanding and solve all problems of life, he must accept this life of tapasya, austerity, and restriction. Restriction is for human beings, not for animals. We encounter restrictions daily in our common dealings. We cannot drive a car on the left or run a red light without risking apprehension by the law. If a dog, however, walks on the left side of the street or crosses against the red light, it is not punished because it's an animal. The law, therefore, makes distinctions between human beings and animals because human beings supposedly have advanced consciousness. If we do not follow rules and regulations, we again lapse into animalism. Apparently, propaganda is being made celebrating freedom as opposed to a regulated life. But one who sees things as they are can understand that freedom from all restrictions is animal life. Therefore, Shukadeva Goswami recommends tapasya. If we want actual freedom from the problems of life, we have to accept a life of austerity. Bondage to material life is the only other alternative. What is tapasya? What is austerity? The first principle of austerity is brahmacharya, restricted sex life. The real meaning of brahmacharya is complete celibacy. And according to Vedic culture, in the beginning of life, one should strictly follow the regulations of brahmacharya. When he is grown up, the brahmachari can marry and become grihastha, and as a grihastha, he can have sex. But in the brahmacharya life, strict celibacy is the rule. In the present age, people have become degraded for want of tapasya because they are not taught how to execute tapasvi life. Criticism for its own sake will not do. One must be effectively trained in the life of tapasya. In the Vedas it is said that those who execute a regulated life of tapasya are brahmanas. Ekadaksharam gargi vidit vasmal lokat praitisa brahmanach etad aksharam gargya vidit vasmal lokat praitisa kripanach. Everyone is dying, for no one can live here permanently. But one who dies after executing a life of tapasya is a brahmana. And one who dies like a cat or a dog without executing tapasya is called a kripana. These two words are used frequently in Vedic literature, brahmana and kripana. Kripana means miser, and brahmana refers to a liberal, broad-minded person. Brahma janatiti brahmana. One who knows the supreme, the absolute truth, is a brahmana, but one who doesn't know is an animal. This is the difference between animal and man. Man, to deserve the name, must be educated to understand the absolute truth. Because human life is meant for knowledge, there are schools and colleges, philosophers and scientists and mathematicians. The process of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending need not be taught, for they are learned instinctively. Human life is obviously meant for more. It is meant for tapasya and knowledge.